Hey, it's Jordan. Hope you're having a nice weekend. If you hadn't noticed on CNN and other news this week, you would think that the lost submarine was the most important crisis on planet Earth. Not minimizing, unfortunately, tragically, that 5 people lost their lives, including the CEO of Ocean Gate, who seemed to be very casual and reckless with safety. Tragedy when anybody loses their life. But the fact that this was leading CNN and nonstop, almost 24/7, compared to what I would say was a monumental, evidence-based smoking gun proof of a corporate government cover-up of the nuking of East Palestine, shows you exactly what's wrong and toxic about the corporate media system we are trapped in this country. Let's first get a little bit into the submarine. If you don't know, I'm sure you do. 5 people, unfortunately, were lost. They have not found this submarine. The 5 people who were aboard while on an expedition to explore the wreckage of the Titanic didn't survive. Passengers were British businessman Hamish Harding, who his net worth was $1 billion. Not to say it's not tragic that he died, but a billionaire. You also had Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dagwood and his teenage son, Mr. Dawud, net worth of $360 million. You also had the CEO of Ocean Gate, Stockton Rush. He was worth $25 million. Ocean Gate's valuation, $66 million. And if you look at it, seems like he was pretty reckless. The Ocean Gate Expedition CEO, Stockton Rush, said he was personally insulted after an industry expert raised concerns about safety flaws in the Titan submersible, which imploded, killing 5 crew members on Sunday. Former Ocean Gate consultant Rob McCullum warned Rush that he was endangering passengers' lives and urged him to stop using the vessel until it had been independently certified. Emails reviewed by the BBC showed. Rush dismissed McCollum's concerns as baseless cries and accused him of trying to stop innovation in the deep water submersible industry. Then you have, you're remembered for the rules you break. Ocean Gate CEO, who is piloting the Titan, admitted in 2021 that the sub's construction had broken some rules. Well, you don't say. So here you have a couple billionaires, apparently one of their children, and 2 others tragically dying. I'm not trying to minimize that at all, but people tragically die all over this world every single day. People are tragically dying from mass shootings that got less time and coverage on CNN and other outlets than the missing submarine got this week. 2 or 3 of these were billionaires. They all made the choice to go on this expedition touring the wreckage of the Titanic, and the CEO, multi-billionaire, apparently cut corners in safety with this submarine. But this got all the coverage, and up until last night and this morning, now we have coverage of what looks like, or is being described as, a Russian civil war. This was still being covered endlessly. Kind of reminded me of CNN's coverage of the missing Malaysian plane years ago that went on for months. Kind of that theme of intrigue and a missing submarine. And, you know, we could get our baby boomer viewers hooked to the TV for all the intrigue. And what do we know? What do we don't know? Let's tell you a little bit more about the passengers, et cetera, et cetera. But there was something truly incredibly important, something truly seismic, earth-shattering that came out at the same time of the missing submarine coverage. For you Status Coup viewers who have been watching for months, we have been, as humbly as I could say it, covering the East Palestine disaster more than anyone else. And credit to Louis DeAngelis, our reporter, who's on vacation, so he wasn't there to cover this week. Credit to him, who's been there 3 times. Literally, proof came out in an investigative hearing that a multi-billion-dollar corporation, Norfolk Southern, intentionally nuked an American town so that they wouldn't lose money by having a railroad track shut down for a couple more days. Let me repeat. Evidence came out that a multi-billion-dollar company, Norfolk Southern, nuked East Palestine intentionally. Other than a couple articles, this was not featured on CNN. This was not leading coverage in the New York Times, the Washington Post. I'm pretty sure it wasn't on any front pages. It kind of just went by as just a little news headline. How does that happen in America? It makes zero sense. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let's play the clip. This is the manufacturer of the vinyl chloride that was detonated on the train, on the East Palestine train. This is the manufacturer from Oxyvinyl basically exposing for the first time that they told Norfolk Southern these cars, the chemicals, vinyl chloride, which are linked to cancer, rare forms of liver cancer, lung cancer, brain cancer, among other things. They told them, yeah, there's no evidence that these cars are polymerizing, meaning heating up and pressurizing, the chemicals pressure expanding to the point of a risk of an uncontrolled explosion. Not once, not twice, 3 times.
On Saturday evening, February 4th, representatives of Oxyvinyl spoke directly with representatives of Norfolk Southern and its emergency response contractors regarding conditions at the derailment site. We made it clear, based on our expertise of the chemical properties of our product, that stabilized VCM would be unlikely to spontaneously polymerize under the conditions described to us by Norfolk Southern and its contractor. Polymerization of VCM is a very exothermic reaction, which generates significant heat, resulting in increased pressure within its container. If that pressure is not relieved, it can cause a failure of the container. An uncontrolled VCM polymerization reaction would have an obvious temperature rise that would continue through the duration of the exothermic reaction. For this reason, we emphasize with Norfolk Southern and its contractors the importance of monitoring the temperature of the rail cars. And on Sunday morning, February 5th, we further reinforced our view that polymerization was not occurring during a call with Norfolk Southern representatives. As previously mentioned, Oxyvinyl had dispatched a 3-person team to Ohio in order to make certain that we had representatives on the ground who could serve as a resource to Norfolk Southern and those managing the response effort. My colleague on the panel, Steve Smith, led that team, and he arrived in East Palestine on the afternoon of Sunday, February the 5th. On Sunday evening, Steve met with Norfolk Southern's emergency response contractors and, for the 3rd time, stated Oxyvinyl's view that polymerization of VCM was not occurring. In summary, although our rail cars did not initiate the derailment and did not breach in the derailment, we provided technical support to Norfolk Southern and its emergency response contractors. We sent a team to Ohio to support Norfolk Southern's response effort, and we provided information regarding stabilized VCM. We advised that the temperature of the rail cars should be monitored, and we communicated our view that polymerization was not occurring.
Communicated their view that polymerization was not occurring, not once, not twice, 3 times. Let me break that down. If you failed chemistry, I got like a C-. Polymerization, meaning the chemicals in the car were heating up and expanding to the point that the car could explode, was not happening. Meaning there was not an imminent, urgent risk of an uncontrolled explosion of the cars containing vinyl chloride. Meaning there were other alternatives than doing a open burn detonation, which is prohibited by EPA regulations because it threatens public health and the environment. It does not contain pollution controls either. Meaning Norfolk Southern was looking for a phony emergency that they could concoct out of thin air, literally, so that they could blow up the chemicals, because it would be quicker then to reopen the tracks and not lose money. Experts I've talked to said they would be losing over $1 million a day every day that track was closed, because it would have taken longer if you are extracting the chemicals left from each car. That could take, I was told, anywhere between 4 or 5 days to an extra week. Well, can't lose $5-6 million. No. That was an important shipping lane, by the way. Abram air tanks were being shipped along manufactured in Lima, Ohio. I think it's pronounced Lima. Manufactured there at an Army plant. These Abrams air tanks that are being used in the Russia-Ukraine war, manufactured in Lima, were transported along this Norfolk Southern path to the East Coast and then sent to Ukraine. I don't have evidence that that had anything to do with the decision to detonate these cars and reopen the track, but factually, there was important to the military-industrial complex weaponry being shipped along this path during a hot war. Let me play another clip, which I didn't see on CNN or MSNBC or Fox News. I didn't see quoted really in the New York Times from the manufacturer of the vinyl chloride. I'm pretty sure if I was the company, I'd be listening to the manufacturer of the chemical who knows the chemical's properties better than your experts at Norfolk Southern. Pretty sure I'd be listening to him and the company a lot more prevalently than I would be, relying on myself. Let's listen to this.
You can take that temperature anywhere on the rail car skin and know you got a problem. So it's a long way to go, and it will be very obvious if you have that reaction going on.
So the temperature trend that we had on the screen earlier, what does that tell you about about polymerization?
Yeah, so my understanding is that for that rail car on the west end, our view when it was described, that rail car was leaning against a PVC car that had heat, smoldering fires going on. And I think I read in Chief Drabick's notes that, maybe around midnight when they had that fire up near it, the temperature had dropped, the fire erupted kind of near it, it heated up to 139, they put the fire out, and it immediately dropped to, back to 129. So that trend of 12 degrees, over 22 hours of monitoring, that also corresponds with a 20 PSI drop in pressure in the car. It's conclusive to all of us that polymerization was not going on in that car. And the location where they were taking the temperature on the skin is valid enough to draw that conclusion.
Is that what you told Norfolk Southern and its contractors?
We never actually had conversations about the trends. The two data points that we had Sunday night was the 135 and 138. And so, what we knew with the first two data points was that at 135 or 138, shooting at the spot where he had, fell to the rail car, we felt confident we were on the skin. At that temperature, the pressure in that rail car is 121 pounds. So safety valve on that car is 247, design is 300, and the burst pressure 750. Point being, it's got a long, long ways to go from 135 degrees to present any threat of overpressurization.
A lot of big words there. Let me break it down. For the vinyl chloride to polymerize, meaning it's getting so hot and it's expanding, the pressure of the chemicals is expanding to the point of a spontaneous explosion, it would have to reach about 320 degrees. It had reached about 130 degrees. Not good at math. 130. 320, it's about 200, a little under 200 degree difference. By the way, this gentleman talking is Paul Thomas. He's the Vice President of Health, Environment, Safety, and Security at Oxy Vinyls, which is the manufacturer of the vinyl chloride that they detonated. Let me get this straight. You're on conference calls with these folks. You're not asking them to come to the scene. I would want them there on the scene. If I'm the railroad company and you're concerned about this toxic, cancer-causing gas, vinyl chloride, okay, you have them on conference calls. They're repeatedly telling you what you don't want to hear. Yeah, we don't see any evidence of these cars polymerizing, meaning that they're at risk of exploding. Well, Norfolk Southern needed an emergency so that they could blow up the cars and move this thing along and reopen those tracks. So then he's saying, well, we didn't actually get to talk to them about these trends. So you shut them out of the emergency response after they told you or were not telling you what you wanted to hear. He was saying that there was some like 3 representatives from the company on the ground going back and forth with Norfolk Southern and then going kind of like a game of telephone as the middleman. Your company folks were communicating with Norfolk Southern. Norfolk Southern would tell them what to tell you. Why wouldn't you be communicating directly with the manufacturers of the chemicals? Why wouldn't you be communicating directly with the expert and the director of health, safety and environment for the company that made the chemical. Who would know more about the chemical? Your expert team at Norfolk Southern or the manufacturer of the chemical? This is not rocket science, who you would lean on more to know at what temperatures or conditions this chemical could explode. You have a smoking gun. When, not if, this becomes a criminal case, which I think it will. This is the star witness. This guy and other folks from the company saying they did not need to do this. They basically concocted an emergency and sacrificed the people of this town to reopen this train line. Somehow, a missing submarine with billionaires who chose to be on the submarine, and the head of the company, the head of the submarine company that cut corners in terms of safety and yelled at anyone who challenged him on cutting corners in terms of safety. Somehow that was wall to wall for 48 to 72 hours. Yet this got a couple headlines in an article headlines. The intentional nuking by a multi-billion-dollar corporation of a small town. A small town, which, by the way, is suffering from probably permanent life-altering damage, health-wise, not to mention the mental health. I mean, this is just some of the symptoms we have been told by residents who live there, because we have been on this and we have been talking to residents almost every day since this happened in February. You have residents experiencing dizziness, nausea, bloody noses, headaches, sore throat, chest pains, burning eyes, nose burning, numb lips and tongue, diarrhea, fatigue, rashes, sinus infections, numbness in their back of their neck, chloroacne, chemical taste in the mouth. Women are having delayed and irregular menstrual cycles, forgetfulness, confusion, increased anxiety. I've talked to people with severe depression developing because of their situation. I talked to a mother who said their 9-year-old son was peeing blood. I talked to somebody who has blood coming out of their rectum. A male, I don't know if it's connected, but there's a man in town that just got a rare form of breast cancer. Men getting breast cancer, relatively rare. All these things happening after the town was nuked by a company that didn't need to nuke the town. And this is not what is leading newscasts in America. This is not on the front page of newscasts, nor is the fact that an American city still has contaminated water, toxic water, almost 10 years later, that being Flint, Michigan. This is why Status Coup exists. These stories will never go viral because the media will not let them go viral, and big tech and its rigged algorithms will not prop up these stories to go viral. But these are the stories that matter. If you have watched this all the way through, consider becoming a Status Coup member, statuscoup.com/join. Support our investigative and on-the-ground reporting for as low as $5 to $10 a month.